Before we jump into our content teardowns today, let me go ahead and introduce Anne and Bernard. And Anne Smarty is the co-founder of Smarty Marketing, a boutique SEO agency in New York. She's had a career spanning over 2 decades in SEO, and she's held various roles, including being an SEO analyst, editor-in-chief at Search Engine Journal, and an SEO community manager. So Anne knows her stuff. I'm dropping in her socials if you want to make sure to stay connected with her. And then Bernard is the co-founder of Clearscope, the leading SEO optimization software for high quality content teams. Before Clearscope, Bernard started an SEO consulting agency, was a growth advisor in residence at 500 startups, and led growth at YC startup called 42 Floors. So I'm also going to drop in his information. And before we get started today, just a couple webinar chat rules. So remember to be good humans, be professional, be respectful. And we will be recording this session. So if you have to drop early, we'll send it to you if you RSVP'd. The other thing is, if you have any questions, one of the best ways to make sure that we see them so that they get answered today during the call is to drop them in Zoom's Q&A or in the particular Q&A box. And one more thing, if you want to make sure to chat with the group and ask questions or discuss things live, to have your messaging in the chat set to everyone. Okay, so now that we've got the logistics out of the way, let me ask you, Anne, as we get started, with your extensive experience in SEO and content marketing, what do you see as the biggest trend shaping the industry right now, especially in how content is being created and distributed?
Well, it's not exactly the new trend that we've been dealing with, but it's going to stay here with us and it's going to get worse. We are all going to see less traffic, regardless of how we do it. Regardless of how active we are anywhere, people just do not click in on many social media platforms, on search. While I'm saying it's not the new thing, Google has been sending less and less clicks for years now. And I think the first study was about 10 years ago, and it showed drastically with all those answer boxes. People also ask image boxes, all of those boxes that give answers to you right away without necessarily needing a click to learn more. It's been a while. Now people are searching conversationally, whether it's talking voice questions to their mobile phones. So now those are also AI platforms where you can just ask them questions and they will give you answers right away, removing the need for further research or further clicking or discovering anything. So people are getting used to search like that, and they are getting used to getting quick answers right away. I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I'm searching, I close that search tab right away because I have all the quick answers I needed. So that's going to be a trend. It's getting worse because ChatGPT, Gemini, all of those platforms are so good at answering questions, and sometimes in most cases, there's no need to click. So that will be the trend that we will be dealing with going forward. And I know many businesses, many publishers are going crazy about that. And they always ask questions, how do we revive that traffic we had 5 years ago? Well, there's probably no way. And that is the new trend going forward we will have to deal with.
Those
Yeah,
are your thoughts. Bernard, you got anything to add there?
I couldn't agree more. I'll add extra flourishings on top of, what I think is that Anne said very poignantly. And I think that the rapid cannibalization of, informational, definitional, and certain classes of queries is really, upon us. And so, that kind of means certain things. And, I feel like diversification, becomes more important. Brand building also becomes, a lot more important. And then kind of realizing that the internet is growing up, like if we say SEO, really took root early 2000s, we're now 20 25 years in, and it's a very different mature ecosystem. It's hyper competitive, and people's behaviors around search and the internet have evolved dramatically. And so, my recommendation to stay relevant is really to think broadly about your marketing strategies and really think about where your audience is, what value your company products, services are offering, and really meeting your audience where, they search or where they hang out. And I think that that's becoming, more and more the game.
Good stuff to get us started and things that we can keep in mind as we go through our teardown today. So, is everyone ready for our content teardown? With Anne and Bernard. Okay. And just a reminder, our content teardowns are fun and friendly. We're here to help people grow and thrive and answer questions. And so as you have questions related to the sites that we're exploring together live, just drop them in. This is a really great session that often ends up very conversational where everyone gets a lot of like tactical questions answered. So we love these content teardowns and we've heard that you do too. So thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to disappear as Bernard and Anne jump into their teardown.
Well, Anne, I've started sharing with you all my screen. And the first website that we'd love to tear down, take a look at, is called Agent Advice. And go to the homepage real quick. They appear to do, advice for targeting real estate agents and, help then realtors with lead generation for all of their different clients. I'll pass the mic over to you. I've jotted down my own notes, but Anne, when looking at some of this content, some of the traffic on the site, what are ideas, thoughts, feedback that you have for the content creators at Agent Advice?
So I'll start with the main question from the owner of this site and that's something I've noticed even before reading that comment, is that they were heavily hit by helpful content update. Yes, so I think they were twice, both times they were hit by helpful content updates. And here, a big disclaimer, no one in SEO, I mean, no one, even I think Googlers do not know those answers, is what helpful content update really needs. There are no tactical solutions to helpful content update. There are no definitive recoveries from it. So anytime you're looking for a helpful content audit or helpful content recovery service, do not buy it, because if people promise to you to recover, that you will recover from helpful content, that's probably a scam, because everyone in the industry knows there is no confirmed recovery after certain tactics that people perform. People would recover without doing anything, or they would recover without changing everything, or they would remain bad after changing everything. And I do say it's a penalty, because people did lose 80% of that traffic, even though it's algorithmic. It's probably AI driven. That's why even Googlers do not have those answers, because that's something AI decides. We had just a couple of days ago, Google would invite those helpful content hit publishers to their quarters to talk to them. And the answer was basically, you will probably not be able to recover next update, maybe an update after that, or maybe in a year. That's what they've been saying, publishers, for a year now. So that's probably going to be 2 years for the recovery for some of those. And I have some ideas. Whether they're going to help or not, it's not clear. At this point, helpful content updates classifier is not a separate update, so do not expect that to happen. It's part of a core update from Google. The first one is coming within a week. That's what they told us. And possibly if you start changing something on your site now, that is not going to be impactful for this update that is going to happen right now. So if you have been doing something for months, maybe you have a chance, but Google doesn't think so. We still hope. If you start doing something now, that's probably you have a few months before the next update to have any hope for any partial recovery. Another note here, Google also told us whatever you lost in September of 2023 is not recoverable because search engines change, search results change. There are AI overviews. Even if you have your rankings back, the traffic will still be lower than it was in September 2023. And that goes back to what I said as the trend these days. We are all losing traffic, regardless of how big of a brand we are, how huge of a publisher. I think the only brand that is gaining traffic is Reddit at this point. Everyone else is losing traffic. So we'll have to deal with that. As for helpful content, first of all, and that's something I will have to bring up for every site, and that's very fundamental, is you need a brand and you need backlinks. Unfortunately, we had a clear correlation between sites losing a lot of organic visibility to helpful content update and those gaining visibility to replace those sites were backlink profiles. And I know that we keep talking about backlinks losing their impact for organic search. Yes, in a way that there are many more signals at this point, including helpful content classifier, but that's about balance. When you have strong backlinks, Google is more willing to forgive you other deficiencies on your site, and that's a clear pattern that we see for just about any client. I think there are maybe a few exceptions that I ask the SEO community to provide to me because I really haven't seen any. But people talk about, hey, my site ranks, my client site ranks without backlinks. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a single site yet. So with that in mind, working on your backlink profile at this point is #1 priority, especially if you have a hit for helpful content update. And it's not just backlinks, just any backlinks you can get by. Any backlinks that A, drive traffic, B, drive brand visibility. If you've been talked about, if you get searched online, that's a great signal for Google that you are a brand and someone knows you, not just finds you through generic search queries. You need to have branded search and you need to have strong backlinks. And anything that you can combine for those backlinks to drive those backlinks would be perfect. Provide your feedback to services like Harrow so that journalists cover you. Get interviewed. Participate in webinars like we are doing right now in your niche. Participate in podcasts. I don't know. Even contribute to high-profile real journals or websites or magazines in your industry. Anything you can do to get your brand out there, and it's great if those efforts are also driving some backlinks and clicked. Viral marketing, if you can create something great, is awesome. Free tools in your industry that then can create some engagements with your site and then reference from others. Great. Anything you can do, it's not just what is on your website, it's also what people say about your brand, how they link to you. It's still fundamental. And for helpful content update, unfortunately, it's what works. Especially, I mean, again, the disclaimer, it's not that I saved someone from helpful content update, but we could see which sites were hit and which were not. And there was a clear correlation between brand visibility, backlink profiles, and being safe from losing so much traffic. Smallest publishers lost the most traffic through that update because they were not as referenced, as well references, as well trusted, as well known as the experts on that content. So that is fundamental. There are other theories, and I think I referenced a couple of in the notes of that spreadsheet, but you can Google and see explaining your methodology, explaining who you are and why you are expert, having author schema, company schema, any way you can show to Google why you're an expert on that topic. Referencing Gov and edu sites, usually great, especially when you have to deal with anything that has to do with financing, health. When you reference actual official advice from US government, if that's United States or your own country, wherever you are, is always great. My trick, when I work on sites like that, I search site.gov and then the keyword, whatever that article is about, and see what Gov sites had to say about anything, what the statistics about some crimes or housing in this example would be relevant to that page, so that you can reference the actual trusted advice from something that has been researched, edited. There are a lot of layers of understanding whether that content is well written and trusted. And those references do help. So anytime you can talk about your methodology, how do you rate it, these tools? Exactly. What was your way of thinking? How many team members were working in it? Whether you collected social proof outside of your site, how you did it, and why you did a good job. All that helps. Keeping your content fresh helps, trusted references helps, authorship helps, especially if you can connect that authorship to some external trusted sources. Let's say the author is wrote an Amazon book, or created a course online, or was referenced in some, I don't know, New York Times. If you can point that about author page to all those achievements, and also add schema to make it easier for Google to find that and connect all the dots. LinkedIn profiles are used for authorship verification as well. So, and all of that, if you can have that on your site, would be helpful. Whether it's going to help in 2 months, 6 months, or 1 year, I cannot guarantee, but those are all good steps for ensuring that Google trusts you more. And one more thing here, I almost forgot, is that, I'm sorry, Bernard, I'm
No.
almost done. So one thing I almost forgot is that helpful content hit pages that had traffic. So the theory behind that is that Google used that click-through data, engagement data, in understanding that that page was not as satisfying to the user. So anything you can do to move things, do a heat map analysis of your page and understand what's distracting people, why they're not interacting with page that well, why they are not going down the page, not scroll enough to read more. All of that could be helpful to understand how you can move things around and get more engagements on that page. We don't have click-through data that Google doesn't give us. Hey, this is a click, but it's not a long click, let's say. Long click is when people are interacting with the page for some time and do not click back to search results, for example. We don't have exactly that data, so you will have to test things around. But using any way you can improve the usability of the page, not necessarily looking at top ranking pages in Google right now, because there is another note here. Some sites that replaced HCU hit pages may not have as much click-through data yet. They may be hit next time when Google realizes they're not as good, as well satisfying the user as well. So not necessarily looking and saying, hey, but this site that replaced me on top does not provide as good usability as well. That may not be a good answer. You have to be using your own user base, your own click data, your own, like I said, heat maps usually work. When you see, hey, people just leave looking at this image, that's all they notice on the page, and then they click off the page. Let's remove that image or move things around, rephrase the call to action, for example. Those are all good things to think about. No definitive answer at this point, but at least you have some steps in recovery. Thank you, and I'm sorry I
No.
talked.
No, you had so
content.
many points that I was like, I need to start taking notes because I want to follow
Helpful
up
content.
on some of
Helpful
them.
content is something I'm really passionate about. And that's not even because any of my clients was hit, because the smallest people on the internet were hit with that update as a rule. Those people could not even afford my services. So they were the most vulnerable part of the internet that lost so much within those 2 updates. And that's why I'm like, it's heartbreaking. And I've done a lot of reading and testing. but so I have passion for that for sure.
Yes, I
So
can
I
hear
with
it. I
that, I'm
feel it.
sure you have a lot of good stuff to add. So sorry for
No, no,
dominating.
not add, just follow up on. So you mentioned this whole like citations from .gov using an advanced search operator. Can you tell me what specifically you're doing? Is it something like this? And then like real estate or
You don't
something?
even have, yeah, I don't even have this star there, just a dot.
Really like this?
Yeah. That would work as well.
And then I can do like
And then you can
statistics.
go and see, you can play whatever the page is.
Okay.
For pages, statistic doesn't make sense. Maybe in this case, you could add something like real estate fraud or something like that, so that what to stay away from, what red
Hmm.
flag when you
Mm-hmm.
choose a real estate agent. So it's what makes sense for each page. Sometimes it's statistics, sometimes it's security, sometimes it's fraud, sometimes it's something else. But what statistics or Gov resources you can find that actually add value to the context of that page is always a plus.
Okay. And then it's build internal links pointing to these types, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it. In terms of schema, what are you doing? I imagine this is like what comes to my mind. I'm like rich snippet testing tool. I come here, I put this in, I test it, and then I see, what kinds of markup they're using. And, do you have specific schemas that you are like, absolutely everybody must have these? Does it depend? When you say authorship, is that a specific markup that, you use?
Yes. So there are two types. Well, schema is one type, but when we talk about schema, there are schema types that trigger rich snippets. Those are
Okay.
product,
Hmm.
how-tos, recipes, all of that. Those are
Hmm.
great. They do not work for everyone, but it's not. It's always a must if you have a relevant site. But there are also types of schema that makes it easier for Google and going forward for any generative AI platform out there to pull essential information from the site.
Okay.
And or to make it for the when we talk about trust, authority, EEAT signals, whatnot, we talk about that type of schema, making it easier for Google to say, "Hey, this is an expert, and this is why." And at that point, two types of schema helps or person schema could be anything, could be author, founder, could be both. They also have like knows about that shows your expertise. Same as is very important property there because they can be multiple and you can actually point Google to your other entities online so that it could connect all the dots. Like this is you on Twitter, this is you on Instagram, this is you on LinkedIn, and this is your authorship on Amazon, or this is your interview. All of those are also helpful. Or this is your column at, let's say, New York Times. You used to write to that, even though you're not anymore. But those little signals help Google to understand, hey, this person is also existing outside of the site. It's
Hmm.
a real person, and they do relevant stuff outside of the site, and that's why it's an expert. It's not like the ultimate way to show to Google that you are well trusted and have expertise on topics, but it helps. It's one of the little things that can help. So person schema and organization schema, same point here. You need to show Google that's actually an entity, not just a website. We do this outside of the site. We have if it's a lawyer, we have like some representation on trusted lawyer membership sites, or we
Hmm.
have authorship somewhere. So all of that is helpful to Google to see, hey, this is the same entity around the web. There's a good chance it could be trusted.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One last question, again, just based off of everything you said. I find it also very fascinating, and also just the recent 2 years of SEO volatility to be insane and interesting, but also, saddening and depressing in a lot of ways. I think the brand links idea is interesting. The folks at Moz more specifically Tom Capper, came up with this idea of like brand authority, and that the helpful content update, the theory behind it was
Mhm.
this like relationship between, brand and domain authority. And I believe that Moz brand authority have some sort of a free
Tool.
checker as well. So do you agree, disagree? Is it more nuanced? What do you think about these assertions that are being made, and how Moz is maybe trying to give people insight into brand? How do you measure brand?
That is a great question, and one that is very hard to explain to executive or any decision makers within a company, that, hey,
Hmm.
you need a brand. It's so really not easy to apply any metrics to. It's the tool is great. I wouldn't really go crazy about it. Definitely not something good using. Run it, maybe compare your brand number to higher ranking competitors. At least you know what to compare to, like it's the same tool. I would definitely do this to measure how successfully you're building your brand. You track your branded search and your brand mentions. You need to see some kind of a growth there. There is no one number that can explain it, because we're all different. Like you can be very narrow niche like SEO, and no one knows and Smarty apart from that community. And SEO is a very, you wouldn't believe it, but it's a small segment of the world. So my brand globally is not as big, but I may be known within this little circle of people who trust me. So putting a number on the brand is not an easy thing to do, especially it could be not just brand. In my 20 years of SEO, I've had 6 or 7 brands that I founded, but everyone knows me just as a Smarty. So my personal brand was able to sustain those other little brands that I had. And how do you put a number on that? Like separately, those brands are not as well known, but if they know that association with myself, that's helpful. So it's not easy to answer, but definitely presence of branded search and online mentions of the brand is something Google is using as signals. So you
Hmm.
need to work on improving and growing those. That's your ultimate goal. It could be social media ads, because people do search when they see an ad on Facebook, and that gets some searches for branded searches as well. That could be participating on Reddit, social media, being part of the community, contributing to other sites. It could be anything, but whatever you do, you have to be working on your brand mentions and branded search to grow.
I think this is a great segue to a question that someone wrote in about. Okay, so someone submitted their site in the last 24 hours, so I don't think we're going to get to their site today, but they noted that their two main problems are that they rank for branded searches and 98% of their organic traffic lands on the homepage but doesn't go anywhere else. So what if you're doing well with the branded search? Do you have any guidance or tips on how teams can work to solve this issue and kind of like build on that relationship? So the brand is known, the brand is being searched for. How do we kind of like nudge those leads further down in the sales pipeline or sales journey?
That sounds like a very non-SEO question. I mean, what I mean is that there is no one single answer to that for sure. I would ask why people are so much interested in a brand to search for it, but not to engage further. That sounds like there is some disconnect there. I would like to see where those branded searches are coming. Definitely have some usability on-page conversion optimization expert to look at the site. Maybe even ask your friends to land on that page and see, hey, what's preventing people from engaging further with that site. So there could be so many questions. It does feel weird to me. I had a platform that I founded 2006 or 7, looked terrible because I didn't have any designer, anyone on staff. It was so early on. But our only search was our brand search. So everyone would come searching for that brand because I was very good at promoting it. And no matter how terrible the page was, all of that traffic engaged because they were already very interested in that brand, interested enough to search for it. So chances are people would be interested as well as engage with that site. So I would definitely, I'm sure we may have it if you added Amanda to our spreadsheet. I would definitely like to see where that disconnect could be between people interested enough in searching for that name, but not interested enough in engaging with that site, because that doesn't sound like something that is usually happening with branded search. Branded search is usually the most engaging search, whatever it takes, because people were already curious enough about that site to search for it.
Yeah. That brings up an interesting thought, which is, Google has obviously came out by force through the antitrust case that they do indeed use user engagement signal tracking. Cindy Crumb's work recently revealing that perhaps that's using Chrome data, and they're actually delegating the tracking of user signal to us as users of Chrome, and we're then training Google's machine, further reinforced by the fact that they strike up deals with Apple to be the default search engine, therefore locking down user engagement. It's almost like branded search. Maybe, obviously people have been thinking about it in terms of ratios and, authority of sorts. But something that you said earlier, Anne, that really, sparked my interest is that branded search is engaging, right? Those people who are searching for your brand are likely to engage with your brand. And perhaps it's not necessarily a ratio as the right way to think about it, but more of the fact that, long clicks is good, and branded search means longer clicks to your site. And so therefore, if you have a stronger ratio of branded searches to your estimated traffic, that basically you're increasing the overall user engagement across your domain. And that's actually what's important, not necessarily brand itself. Anyways,
Exactly. That is
just
definitely something that plays a role. So there are definitely a few ways to look into that. It's like with links. You don't have to you don't need a link just for the sake of link equity. You need it for any other signals it can bring to the site. So it is, yes, link equity, but also a click, but also a relevant click, but also some brand recognition, trust signals if it's coming from a trustworthy publication, freshness. If people keep linking to you, that a great signal that's you're doing something relevant at today. So all of those signals are important, not just link equity or page rank as the old school way to call it. So exactly the same with engaged traffic. Yes, some pages will be less engaging, but to improve your overall portfolio, let's say it like that, to this site. And clicks are site-wide signals. If you read that leak documentation, it's not per page. So Google looks at the aggregation of all the click-through data to your site. And if you have branded search and a good amount of branded search of people searching for you and then likely engaging with your site, you kind of improve that overall portfolio as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. I know we spent a lot of time here, but I think there is a lot of updating in terms of helpful content, your thoughts around that we covered. I just want to sprinkle in a few of my thoughts as I was auditing it. I do agree, generally, affiliate type content, just as an entire industry, has been really being decimated. I took a look at some of the leaders like G2, because, this kind of felt, at least with the pages that were submitted, that, it was closer to like a, yeah, best, kind of thing. And same thing with this, right? It's like 6 best online like things. And so when we look at, best from G2, sort of that same directory style listing from like a software perspective, like overall traffic has been, quite demolished. And I would say, across the board, yeah, this is very common for just any type of website that kind of has this specific flavor. Yeah, a couple of other things just from a content perspective on the page, right? These are accordioned like this, and Google has been known to either de-emphasize or completely ignore content that is not by default shown to the user. You can imagine that, for websites like Amazon, who have these like mega menu type things, like loaded all into their thing, Google doesn't want to give basically any weight to the text that's hidden behind JavaScript or, CSS elements. And so the fact that these are all folded down by default might actually be hampering the content, like Google's view of your own importance of that text. So just calling that out there, obviously unfolding it all would make for, potentially a even, more lengthy and potentially poor user experience. So anyway, something to think about. Cyrus Shepard came out with at least some interesting evidence and data around helpful content update. And generally his like core, like high level takeaway was that, it's the sites that appeared to be punished by Google were the ones that were too SEO'd. And, I think that basically coming back to this, it does correlate with, your brand is not enough to merit, right? Like at its peak, according to SEMrush, it would be like, 50,000 or 60,000, like at its peak. And basically, if that were the case, this overall ratio would be like even worse, right? Something like this. And so I think that, those then refer to the idea that the brand is not deserving of the amount of traffic that Google is receiving. And when I take a look at a site like this, it just feels to me like SEO, right? And and to your point, I think that page quality raters have trained AI models that Google employs that have then been integrated as the helpful content update classifier into the core updates, which, then I like correlated with like these things here, right? Basically, 2023, right? Spam core and 2023 September helpful content update. I think these correlate very significantly to, the precipitous drops that like a lot of these types of websites have seen. So that kind of brings us to like okay, what should we do about it? And I think that, again, to Anne's point, recoveries from helpful content update have been mostly non-existent. There have been like they look like outlier cases of recovery that have happened, but generally those are sites who have like removed internal linking and removed like a lot of the SEO best practices. And that's kind of what we've seen. One last point, just this bait and switch CTAs like note, it's what, if I click on this, and then okay, I think this one is okay. But yes, I have an ad blocker and it puts me through a few like different affiliate like things before I'm able to get here. I think it was from this particular page. There was like a thing, no, maybe it was, I was like clicking around on some of these or something like this. Yeah, this. So again, this is a page by page like analysis, but when I come here and I'm like, yeah, I want to watch the demo, I kind of get, in my opinion, like bait and switched. And then same thing if I'm like get pricing, I get like what I feel like is bait and switched. Like this is just not good, right? Like people who are doing this, and again, like Anne was mentioning before, I think user engagement, clicks, all of this is site-wide. And so if you have a set of your pages where this is happening, then you can imagine, right, like a lot of rage clicks, right, where people are just like, whatever, or just simply people are gonna be like, all right, I'm out of here, like goodbye, right? So when that happens, you're basically training Google through Chrome data, theoretically, that yeah, your page kind of sucks and that's bad. And the more of that you do, basically the more user engagement, like trust you erode. And yeah, it's just not good.
Okay, I'm back.
You're back. Okay.
We have this has been really good discussion. We have about 15 minutes left. But before we head into a different site, so Bernard, I'll let you kind of choose and pull up another site there. We had the question behind the scenes. How would either of you define what to SEO'd means? So like you had mentioned that site was like to SEO'd. So I know how I would define that, but I'm curious, how would you, Bernard and Anne, define that?
I
Go ahead.
have
Yeah.
an interesting answer to that. We've been dealing with that for a while. Sometimes people would ask the same question about links. How do you tell if a link is obviously paid for? And I'm always like, when you see it. And that's pretty much with SEO as well. It's when you see it, when it's the wording, it's the headings, it's just when you see it. And I would love to have a better definition to that, but because I've been in the industry for so long, and sometimes I struggle with explaining stuff because I know when I see, and that's how I do it. And I would be curious to know what Bernard thinks about that.
You know it when you see it. That's it. You know it when you see it. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, you kind of do know it when you see it, when you've been in the muck of SEO for too long. Uh I was gonna say this is a great segue to our next one. So it is actually a great segue to the next one because this one does have the flavors of being too SEO'd. I'll point it out here, right? So 8 virtual banks in Hong Kong, how do they compare? You can see here, what is a virtual bank? Didn't I come here for 8 virtual banks in Hong Kong? How do they 11 best countries for offshore banking in 2024? Great. So what's the first one? Yes, you're asking me. Like I thought you would tell me. But okay, what is an offshore? Why consider
Right.
offshore banking? Benefits? I'm here to know the best countries for offshore banking. And it's not until oh here,
Yeah,
right?
and sometimes, and I would love to point that out, sometimes it does make sense to add some generic questions to help people at the end of the article, like FAQs, if they really need to know more, that would be, hey, if you're not here, if you're here by mistake and you don't understand what I'm talking about, at the end of the article, you can see to read more about what is virtual banking, what is that, what is that. But when you target a particular query, there is intent behind it, and there is a certain understanding of where, at which point a person in their researching or buying journey is when they're searching for this particular query. And it is usually obvious from the search query how well they know the topic at the point that they search for that particular keyword. And optimizing for topics like that, you first need to give useful answers right away. And second, understand which language you're speaking to those people. Because if I don't know what virtual banking is, I would never search for best virtual banks in a country or somewhere, because I don't know what virtual banking is. So I would start with that query and then go further to those options to consider. So that thinking about, and that's something that really has changed in SEO, because 20, 15 years ago, we were doing keyword matching. The most important thing was to match the keyword, the searchable keyword, to something in your document. And hopefully also repeated X number of times. This segment of SEO really has matured to the point when we need to know which language we're speaking to our target reader or customer based on how they search. And at that point, we know what best answer satisfies them, what else they may need to go further into that researching or buying journey, and whether they need one or one type of content or FAQs or anything, or how well they know. It's also helpful to see what's currently ranking, whether those are listicles, what else they add to their content, and see maybe that's a good idea, because sometimes you are inside your box and all you know is your keyword. So at this point, this keyword optimization is much different from what it was many years ago, when all we needed is to just whatever has that keyword, we'll just dump it on a few pages and get a few external backlinks, and we are ranking. It has changed a lot since then.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So to, obviously we've been saying a lot of subjective things, but to hopefully make it at least a little more objective, right? What Anne was saying was that, somebody is searching best countries for offshore banking or countries for offshore banking, their intent is to learn about the best countries, not to necessarily learn about, what it is. They would have Googled what it
And
is if that's
a
what they wanted.
a quick tip here, sorry for interrupting you for just a second. A quick tip here is to use ChatGPT or Gemini. Give your keyword there and say, hey, what's the buyer persona is searching, that could be searching for that, what they're interested in to learn further after that. So AI, and I think Google is using pretty much the same algorithm layer to that as well, in understanding how to better serve anyone searching for a particular search query. They do have, probably, I think so, they do have that AI level of analysis of what could be the best way to satisfy that searcher, not just to use, like, to explain stuff, but what else after that they may be interested in, and to kind of get them deeper into the site. So AI analysis, and I've been using ChatGPT a lot for that, like just what is search intent, how well aware of the topic the search user is that searching for that, how to best satisfy them, what else they may be interested after finding those answers. All those type of prompts add a little bit clarity to understanding every search query. And Gemini is probably a better option to use it because it's Google.
Oh, yes.
They know better how Google
Yes.
search works.
I was like,
Just
since we're all on the Google thing, I'm just gonna go with Google first.
and looking at AI overviews for those search queries is also helpful these days as well, because Google gives that little um, cues for us in better understanding what people may be interested when they search for something, and what else they may be interested after finding those answers. So those are very important questions to ask when optimizing for any search query these days.
Yeah, yeah, it's complicated. I before in the staging room, Anna and I were talking. We're just like, yeah, there's a lot going on in search. Everything's very confusing. I think we're all trying to muck through it together. But these are all good ideas, and I jotted down some more like ideas of what I think 2 SEO look like. I don't know if there is an example of too many like internal links, but maybe I can find it like if I scroll down a bit. It's like when you kind of get this sort of thing like here that's like happening, except it's like happening so frequently that just also screams kind of like it's been too SEO'd. And then, like one of these things too is also like another like thing where there's just like all of these statistics that like feel forced into the article. It's like another sign. And all of these again came from these evolutionary paths of what SEOs thought were best practices, like the above the fold, hero image, the, statistics to boost credibility, the always starting with explaining what the topic is. I think all of these have sort of been our own undoing, but also we've been rewarded for it. And so I think Google is unraveling what used to work in a very significant fashion. And it's, I think, back to this where Google is saying, okay, maybe in the past, we used to rely a lot more on links and authority and these kinds of things, but that's sort of produced a SERP that's, mediocre at best. And maybe we should rely more on user engagement, which is why I think a lot of their PR is becoming more and more subjective, right? They're like, oh, it's EEAT, it's, best for the user. And they have to say that because the I think, is really kind of dialing in on that. So, um,
One quick note about using clicks and user engagement is that it is still a very limited signal. They have it only for higher ranking pages. So you start having that problem. Well, yes, they have Chrome data and all of that, but I'm talking about when how well a page is satisfying a searcher is only available to Google when you really start ranking. So when you start generating organic search traffic, really do pay attention to how fast people leave your site, if they're doing anything on your site, what can be moved around. So at that point, you already have something to lose, and Google already started accumulating that data about your page, saying, hey, number 2 page is engaging people much better than number 3 page. So maybe we will try to shift things around and give people something else. So when you lose it, it is much harder to gain it back. So when you start getting organic traffic, do keep an eye on whether you are engaging those people enough and what you can do to do that better.
I was going to ask, I know Amanda's probably going to jump in like a few minutes because we're about to hit the hour, but is there anything else from at least this page that you would like to add in terms of like your content, feedback or site feedback? And
No, overall, you said exactly what I thought about that page. I had that main point about that it's too long and not really satisfying immediately the user intent. This was the biggest issue for me. I think it was that the site that asked about using videos and images, or that was the different one.
must have
I would like
been,
to
oh,
address
yes.
that question. You don't use images for the sake of using images. Same with the videos. If they add value to the site, great. If they are for decoration, maybe reconsider because they will be distracting people from your page, from the main point of your site. So the bottom line here, you want to give people what they need as fast as you can when they land on your page. If you have an image or a carousel of images on top of everything, you're just distracting them, and that's not something you want to do. So if any image, if that's a screenshot, if that's something illustrating the point in a different way, so it's more useful. If that's a video talking about something that adds value to the page, great. If you're just having like that huge header image because it looks beautiful, it's something to test and reconsider doing because you may be distracting people from your page.
Fantastic. Let me just quickly look at my notes. Yeah, yeah, that's mainly what I got. Same sort of thing here, which is interesting, is that the site, if you look at it, also started to see signs of decay around the same period. Seems like helpful content. This is a September 2023 peak again. And then if we checked, Ahrefs for the same, it's about, well, oh, this is referring domains. Yeah, same idea, like September 2023 peak
It's
to a
it's
plummet here.
by the way very interesting that in many cases I see these spikes in traffic before the decline or the update that hit, because in my theory is that that spike in traffic is when Google is really paying attention to that site and testing if they were wrong, or if it's really not doing a great job satisfying a search. So I usually look at those spikes to see, hey, yeah, that's Google preparing to hit this website.
There you go. All
I think
right.
that is a good observation. I have so many notes. Thank you, Anne. I've got like pages of notes over here. So thank you both for the conversation today. So we have about 3 minutes left. And what we like to do at the end is just a rapid fire. What are your top tips or the biggest takeaways that you want folks who joined us today to take with them? So whether that's like SEO in 2025, like bigger picture, or whether that's like, hey, you were hurt by the HCU and this is what's maybe next or not next for you. But yeah, I'm interested in hearing both of your top takeaways before we end our session today.
I know I love talking about branding. We've already talked about that enough. I would definitely start with building a brand, but let's not talk about the same thing all over again. So I'll have another one. And my big thing here, and it's not new, like I keep saying all the time that nothing that's going on is not exactly new. Google traffic is not your constant traffic. It's been fluctuating for ages. It is decline. It is on decline. You will lose some, you will win some, then you will lose some again. Do not depend on it. While you have it, build an asset that you can rely on it and on when you lose it, be it a newsletter, community, some way like to interact with your customers, some CRM strategy that you're using to get return customers, whatever you can do. Do not just have Google traffic. Test other ways to earn traffic. Work on your customer retention, returning customers, engaging with customers. All of that is key. Google traffic will never be permanent. It has never been permanent for at least 10 years now, so it's not exactly new. So if you're enjoying some organic visibility at this point, start working not just on your revenue, immediate revenue, but on some ways to retain that traffic, to make it part of your site, to make the ways to get those people back to your site when it's time and when you need something but new clicks. So that would be, and that's been my advice for many years now.
That's really good. Bernard, do you have anything to add there or add before we end today?
You know, nothing new, but I think understand that Google traffic is becoming more and more scarce, right? And so the declines that you might be seeing, everyone, for the most part, except for Reddit, is seeing them. And it sucks. It obviously, makes me feel uncomfortable about what's going on in SEO. But I think the silver lining is that a lot of people, say Will Reynolds from Seer Interactive, he's reporting that, even though traffic is declining, leads and conversions are going up. And so, I think the narrative that Amanda and I talk about when we think about marketing for Clearscope is not to focus on traffic, but to focus on content that targets buyer personas in the right places in their search journeys. And those are going to be, in my opinion, the types of traffic that are worth capturing after all. Like maybe you used to get tens of thousands of visits to what is offshore banking. And, those days are gone. Like AI overviews, featured snippets, whatever, those are going to answer those and you're not going to get traffic for it. But at the end of the day, did you even want the traffic for it? I mean, I guess there's an argument that of course you do, and traffic is good and you can, capture it and all. But I think look at informational content as a branding play and then design a whole set of longer tail content that better fits the journey that your buyers are on and target your content there. So kind of my overall arching take is just really don't worry about targeting the head topics, right? Go after the traffic where it's going to convert and your buyers are.
Great.
Oh, sorry, Anne.
Yeah, I just wanted a quick note. I said that back when featured snippets were introduced, that was 12 years ago at this point, maybe 10. And I said, well, maybe you do not need people who just need quick answers. Maybe you
Yeah,
do not need them on your site that well. Like do not be too concerned about losing those clicks. So not
yeah,
for every type of business for sure. I don't have that answer for like publishers, who rely on every click with like display ads, PPC ads, affiliate ads. But in most cases, if you're a business selling something, you just probably don't need people who just need an answer, a quick answer, and then they leave. They will not convert anyways.
That's a really wise way to put it. That is like, that's like sticking with me, and I'm going to send it to everyone who attended and didn't attend today so that they will remember it too. But Anne, thank you so much for your time. I dropped Anne's links in the chat once again, so you can visit her at smarty.marketing. That is her agency. Also connect with her on LinkedIn or Twitter/X. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise with us. It has been a joy having you today, and we are grateful for you sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.